3 of the 4 major players in Latin America for lithium are nationalizing in one form or another. So who does that leave?
Australia.
For investment opportunities. Australia, number 1 producer of lithium. Argentina and Canada. If it can get its act together.
Welcome back to Mineral Pod. We're here in beautiful Mexico City. Aaron and I have been touring some silver mines in the region, and we thought what better place to do a pod and talk about everything that's been going on from a geopolitical standpoint, specifically as it relates to lithium. Let's get into it.
And if you enjoy the pod, don't forget to give us a like and subscribe. A lot of Western governments are mandating electric vehicles by 2035. The big question mark now is, where will the source of supply come from? 60% of the world's lithium reserves right now are located in Latin America, and 50.4% of the global reserves are located in Chile, Bolivia, and Argentina. So the issue with lithium supply is that it's very centralized in Latin America. Bolivia, Chile, and Mexico have all stated they are nationalizing their lithium industry. The only Latin American player at the moment that hasn't gone that route is Argentina. How do we ensure supply when so many countries with large reserves have nationalized their supply? That's what we want to talk about today. And Mexico is one of the countries that's leading the charge in that regard.
And Mexico, speaking to some mining veterans down here, apparently Mexico only has one large kind of lithium asset. Apparently it's going to be very difficult to make economic. Brine is ultimately going to win. It's going to be far cheaper to produce via brine than hard rock. So that gives so much of an advantage to South America. And the governments know that. And they're getting squeezed by inflation. And they're looking around saying, we got to make some money. We got all this lithium. Let's take it. We'll use it as tax revenue. All these economies have anemic growth. Mexico should be 5 to 10% GDP.
Yeah, they say it's
not.
Kind of dubbed as the slowest growing emerging economy.
And there's no reason for that. They've got a huge workforce. The average age is very young.
What's really promising about Mexico is they have a highly educated workforce. So at this moment, Mexico is graduating more engineers every year than America. So this is how I think Mexico will come into the whole global lithium supply chain. I actually don't think Mexico is going to become a big producer of lithium. What I see Mexico doing is becoming a manufacturer of products that utilize lithium. So 89 of the top 100 automobile part manufacturers right now have manufacturing plants located in Mexico. Over the last 10 years or so, a lot of more sophisticated manufacturing operations have moved from Asia, a lot of them from China, to Mexico. And I would assume that China is the biggest exporter to the US in the world, but they're not. Mexico is. In respect to lithium, I still see Chile, Argentina. I don't know about Bolivia, even though they have arguably the largest reserve of lithium on the planet. I think it's going to be Chile and Argentina shipping lithium product up to Mexico for end use. And you can just see it already with Tesla opening up.
That's what I was going to say, in the north, right? Outside of Monterrey.
Exactly. And up north,
Tesla's got a massive gigafactory opening there.
Exactly. So that's like a $7 or $8 billion investment. And up north is actually where Mexico's lithium reserves are. Now, again, I don't think Mexico is going to be a big producer of lithium. I think they're going to be a large manufacturer for end-use products that use lithium. And Obrador, the president of Mexico, this is where I think it gets really cool, really interesting, is Obrador of Mexico wants to create a free trade region for Latin America. Now, why does he want to do this? Latin America has pretty much every natural resource you can imagine. And Mexico has become a manufacturing powerhouse with access to global markets, but most importantly, America.
Two coasts,
exactly. Now, so if Mexico creates this or leads this free trade region in Latin America, it gives them the supply they need to continually produce more sophisticated end products for global markets.
Mexico's here to stay. I mean, the people are hardworking as they get more and more skilled. The cost of labor is far cheaper than the US and Canada. They're not going away. This is another example of countries looking out for their own best interests, going away from the US. We're going to do our own thing down here. We're going to trade with you and do our thing, but we're looking to different horizons. We're looking to different countries to support us. We're going to support ourselves. This trend is gaining huge momentum, right?
Absolutely. Now, what I think we're seeing is countries, even in Europe and Canada and the US with the critical metal strategy, are looking at their own natural resources and saying, how do we maximize this wealth that we have in the ground and make sure we take care of ourselves so that we can meet these aggressive 2035, 2040 EV mandates and so forth for the green economy.
This all comes back to countries looking around saying, okay, well, what do we have? Where can we boost growth? Where can we boost tax revenue? Oh, it's here and here. It's a free-for-all now. It's every country for themselves. This is not the give economy. No one's getting anything for free anymore, which is why every project you look at, it has to be checking all the boxes. The margins have to be such that things like a windfall 10% tax won't derail the project. If silver's trading at $25 and your cost is 24 or 22, it's not cutting it. It needs to be immensely profitable for these projects to move forward.
Circling back to lithium, where does the opportunity come from all this? So Chile is trying to rewrite its constitution. A lot of that has to do with how they're redistributing wealth from their natural resources. Mexico is pushing for nationalization on lithium. They've already essentially done it for oil and gas. Bolivia is basically a no-go zone as far as foreign investments concerned, just because the landscape is so uncertain. So where are the opportunities?
Keep an eye on Paraguay. There's a few small companies making some moves in Paraguay, very underdeveloped. So look to see them in the news with respect to lithium over the next couple of years.
We got 60% of the world's reserves estimated to be sitting in Latin America. 3 of the 4 major players in Latin America for lithium are nationalizing in one form or another. So who does that leave?
Australia.
For investment opportunities. Australia, number 1 producer of lithium. Argentina, which on a province by province basis in the country is still quite friendly to foreign miners. And Canada. If it can get its act together. These are the most attractive jurisdictions now, based on what some of the Latin American countries have proposed. These are the most attractive nations now for lithium miners to be looking, and for investors to be looking, in my opinion.
While all this is happening in South America and North America, China is not sitting still. We've talked many times about their supply chain with respect to batteries, and their dominance as it relates to cobalt and lithium as well, and all these other metals. It went largely unnoticed. Just recently, China has moved into Afghanistan. They've offered the Taliban $10 billion for access to their lithium reserves. They're in advanced discussions. This would create up to 120,000 jobs for Afghanis. It's estimated the lithium in Afghanistan to be worth $1 trillion. Huge reserves. They're going to build massive infrastructure, tunnels, highways, everything connecting it. So, it wasn't long. We talked about China strengthening its relations with Iran, being Iran's largest trading partner for the last 10 years, doing record trade with Iran. Now they're going to Afghanistan for the lithium. Iraq.
But even beyond that, the biggest foreign investor from a country standpoint in Latin America, in Chile, is China for lithium projects. So they're taking we've talked about this before, the feed the beast. They're vertically integrated in natural resource manufacturing, like the end products. So for them, and this is why they're in Africa with copper, with cobalt, and so forth, the DRC, for example, we talked about in the past, they need to continue to invest abroad in lithium assets so they can keep feeding the beast back home, which is their vertically integrated manufacturing hub, and keep people employed.
And this new reality that we're living in all points back to the U.S. stepping away, U.S. failures. The way they left Afghanistan in was it early 22 or late 21?
21.
January 2023, China inks a $500 million deal in Afghanistan for oil and gas. Huge energy deal. The second the Taliban took over, China swooped right in. They've been cozying up to them ever since, doing massive deals. Watch them get this lithium deal done while the U.S. is hanging out, looking down at South America as they close in and say, no, this is our lithium.
So you have this strategy. I think certain Latin American countries have impeded their growth to a degree, namely Chile, Bolivia, and potentially Mexico with their nationalization. That leaves Australia, Argentina, and Canada with a huge opening. But if China goes and wants to make all these projects in the Middle East, Afghanistan, for example, we probably have 6 or 7 years before they can bring those online. So the question is, how quickly can we get our act together? Australia already has it done. They're the largest producer in the world. Argentina, I think, will do fine. The question is, can Canada capitalize and quickly enough?
I think they can. We saw in the budget, last year, up to almost $4 billion for critical minerals. In the budget, the Mining Association of Canada was blown away. They got almost everything they wanted, which they've never had before, because the critical minerals are under this green umbrella, this transition to renewable energy and the electrification movement. They're green-lighting a lot of these projects, making huge investments. We saw $27 million go to E3. So the feds are stepping up and writing checks, and they're trying to fast-track these mines and support these miners to get it across the line. And, right now our only producer is in Quebec, but there's a number of projects, exciting projects in Saskatchewan, Alberta.
Absolutely. Now, the question is what I would like to see different than how we managed our fossil fuel industry is actually being able to produce end products. Obviously, everybody knows the oil sands. We send heavy crude down to the States to have it be refined.
And priced.
Only so we can buy it back. So
Shame.
for me, it's not just about can we bring mines online. It's can we bring mines online and have manufacturing set up where we can use the product domestically.
Well, this is the whole thing. You saw Trudeau write this massive check to Volkswagen. I looked, it's looking like it's going to create 3,000 jobs. It's one plant. I mean, it's a huge plant, and 3,000 jobs is nothing to shake a stick at, but for the billions of dollars that they're shelling out.
What I think the return is it's a real facility. It's a feather in the cap for the liberal government.
Yeah.
But it's great optics.
Yeah.
So it's like any.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a lead order when you're doing the financing.
Yeah.
So you go out, you get this, you're trying to raise money for, let's say, a mining project. You get this big, well-known investor to come in and be your lead order.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of the crowd wants to get involved. So that's how I view this.
Money loves company. Hey, VW is investing.
So now maybe more will come, and
it's a harbinger. They've set a big precedent, right? I don't know the exact number, but the incentives that they've provided for Volkswagen are
huge,
astronomical,
historic.
Are they going to repeat that time and again? Because if they don't, they just go to the U.S. or they go to Mexico. How much
is it sustainable?
Are we willing to put up? Right?
Yeah.
If we start producing a ton of lithium for cheap, maybe it becomes sustainable at some point, right?
What I see happening, what I think is sustainable, if North America, and you talked about in California, the Saudi Arabia of lithium.
Yeah.
So there's obviously massive reserves of lithium in North America that haven't been exploited. We know this.
Salton Sea.
But what I see happening is Canada and the U.S. will produce lithium. The U.S. will make some end products, but the largest winner of it all will be Mexico for manufacturing. You have all the auto manufacturers already down here, parts manufacturers to the actual automobiles.
Mm-hmm.
It's cheaper. They have the sophistication. And if you want to talk about a lead order, the Gigafactory with Tesla said it all.
True.
So to me, I think Canada's unfortunately will continue to be a raw material extractor, send the product down to inevitably go to Mexico, and Mexico will be producing the finished products.
This is maybe what's behind the free trade zone that they're trying to create, to have countries like Chile and Bolivia send the raw materials up to them, process it, turn it into batteries.
So Canada and the U.S., well, mainly Canada, but some of the U.S. as well, will be sending lithium down to Mexico.
Yeah.
A lot of Latin American countries
sending it up.
Will be sending it up to Mexico. I think Mexico will be the biggest manufacturing winner for lithium, despite the fact that I don't think it'll be a big lithium producer. And a key fact is to remember they are now graduating more engineers every year in Mexico than the U.S. is. To me, that's a huge sign of things to come.
What was that shot? That shot across the bow that the president gave to Biden. This is funny.
Oh yeah, Obrador. This had to do this was actually more aimed at the Republicans.
Okay.
So, and this is really interesting geopolitics because of the USMCA.
Yeah.
The Republicans were saying that they wanted to designate cartels as terrorists, which that'll never happen.
Right.
Okay.
So they can come in and take.
So they can come in, and it's not going to happen. But in response, Obrador said something pretty funny. He said, "There's no way they're coming on our turf, but Americans need to give their kids more hugs and stop focusing on trying to put Donald Trump in jail." It's pretty good. One more thing about Mexico: history always repeats, and as investors, it's important that we are students of history. Otherwise, ignoring it, you do so at your own peril. 100 years ago, roughly, an American, I believe from California, came in and discovered oil in Mexico. Mexico instantly, essentially overnight, went from being off the radar in respect to oil and gas.
I think he was half Mexican.
I think he was too, Mexican-American.
Yeah.
So Mexico goes from being irrelevant in oil and gas in 1910 and around 1910, 1920 to literally the number 2 oil producer in a matter of like 10 years. So then the Mexican government says, and obviously there's a lot of history between Mexico and America geopolitically and the war and etc. But when Mexico realizes, wait, we don't want our natural resources to be exploited by the Americans, they nationalize their oil and gas. We're seeing the same thing happen again with lithium. Can they manage it properly and still attract foreign investors? I doubt it.
Yeah,
I doubt it, but we'll see. And a good example is Pemex, which is a state-controlled oil and gas company, completely vertically integrated.
Yeah, well, you see their gas stations all over.
They're everywhere in the country. They have refiners, they have reserve, they have it all.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about Pemex is since Obrador has come into power, before he was in power, 1.8 million barrels per day.
Apparently, he's going to be out real quick.
Yeah, he's done in 2024. So they have 6-year terms.
Yeah,
but he's pretty popular. I think he's got it between.
Not according to some of the guys I've been talking to.
Depends who you talk to, but he has a 50 to 60% approval rating right now. So his party has a good chance of staying in power. We'll see. It's politics. Things change. But the point is this. When he came into power, right before he came into power, Pemex was producing 1.8 million barrels per day. They're down to 1.6 million barrels per day now. So they privatized before he was in. They tried to sell off their oil and gas assets. Yeah. Production was at 1.8 million barrels a day for Pemex.
Yeah.
Obrador comes in, nationalizes things again. Production for Pemex goes down to about 1.6 million barrels. Additionally, Pemex is now one of the most indebted companies on the planet, roughly $100 billion in debt. Mm-hmm. So can a government run a natural resource company better than the private sector? I think we've seen it time and again. They can't.
No. Resource nationalism for investors just has to be front of mind. I think it's going to define the 2020s is governments taking over projects and just meddling in the hard assets, right? As we kind of move into this hard asset super cycle, this is going to happen more and more. I mean, it's the examples are countless.
Panama, Chile, Bolivia, it's everywhere.
This is all comes back to diversification, right? You can never go all in on it. I mean, in any investment, but you just can't be overexposed to any one of these specific countries, specific mines, specific operations, because politically speaking, anything can happen. We're in a totally new world now, and investors have to remember that.
All right, I think that about wraps it up. Thanks for tuning in.
That's it for us from Mexico City. Take care.